Welcome to the ICJ case, Artsakh mock preliminary hearing, presented by the Armenian Bar Association and the World Affairs Council of Austin. Our video focuses on seeking accountability and international legal redress for the Republic of Artsakh. This is a human rights report on justice delayed, the case for the release of Artsakh's leaders. We demand urgent international advocacy for the high-ranking officials currently detained in Baku, awaiting trial. Our executive summary outlines the case for intervention. High-ranking officials remain in unlawful detention, facing politically motivated charges. International experts cite severe violations of the Geneva Convention, requiring immediate diplomatic pressure for their unconditional release. The timeline of events highlights the path to detention, from the 2020 war and the subsequent Lock-in Corridor blockade in December 2022 to the September 2023 offensive and the unlawful detention of Artsakh's leaders today. The fall of Stepanakert resulted in a forced exodus and humanitarian catastrophe, with 120,000 people displaced. International legal proceedings are underway at the ICJ regarding racial discrimination and ethnic cleansing of the Artsakh population. We define this as a crisis of political hostage-taking. The detention of Artsakh's leadership is seen as leveraging human lives for diplomatic concessions. Legal filings at the ICJ cite arbitrary detention and ethnic profiling. The human cost post-exodus is rootlessness and loss. Beyond physical displacement, the Armenian population faces systematic erasure of cultural heritage. 100% of the ethnic Armenian population fled, with UN reports of cultural erasure. Our strategic objective focuses on awareness, advocacy, and action. We aim to expose the systematic erasure of Armenian heritage and secure diplomatic intervention for the immediate release of political hostages and humanitarian support for the displaced population. Here are the profiles of the 8 detained leaders, representing the highest levels of Artsakh's political and military leadership, all currently held in unlawful detention in Baku. Ruben Vardanyan, former state minister, joined the government during an existential crisis. He is a co-founder of the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, renowned for his social entrepreneurship and humanitarian projects. Vardanyan is detained at Umbaki prison complex in Baku. His trial is considered a travesty, with charges of financing terrorism. His legacy is one of business and humanitarianism, having renounced Russian citizenship to serve Artsakh. Arayik Harutyunyan, former president of Artsakh, led the nation through the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War and the grueling blockade. He coordinated defense efforts and managed the critical humanitarian crisis. Bako Sahakyan, third president, oversaw institutional building. Arkady Gukasyan, second president, led the post-war reconstruction phase and established primary political structures. Both are prominent figures, unlawfully detained in Baku. David Babayan, former foreign minister, was the primary voice of the republic during the blockade. An expert in geopolitics, he voluntarily surrendered to prevent further bloodshed in the 2023 offensive. Levon Manatsakanyan, a high-ranking general and former commander of the Artsakh Defense Army, oversaw national security and defense strategy. David Manukyan, former deputy commander, played a pivotal role in operational command during defense campaigns. We continue with profiles of the detained officials. David Ishkanyan, former Speaker of the National Assembly, was a key civilian leader who helped shape the democratic structures of Artsakh. He represents the political leadership of the parliament. General Vitaly Balasanyan, former Secretary of the Security Council, is a national hero of Artsakh. He has an extensive military and political career, serving as a critical figure in defense and high-level negotiations. The conditions of detention in Baku prisons are concerning. Detainees face isolation, inconsistent access to the Red Cross, and blocked communication, creating a vacuum of information for their families. There are numerous medical neglect reports for detainees. These include concerns about deteriorating health due to a lack of specialized medical care, inadequate nutrition, and the psychological impact of prolonged solitary confinement. The charges rely on Azerbaijan's legal framework. Politicized indictments level broad charges of terrorism and creating illegal armed formations, viewed by observers as a tool for political repression. The challenging legal validity of these charges stems from a sovereignty breach. Charges of violating territorial integrity ignore the conflict's historical and legal context. The legal process is marked by a lack of transparency and restricted counsel access. We see a jurisdictional paradox. Azerbaijan applies domestic laws retroactively to actions taken by Artsakh's leaders within their own territory. This effectively criminalizes the very existence of a different administrative entity. This creates a sovereign conflict, treating the exercise of local governance as an illegal armed formation or terrorism. This framework disregards the principle of de facto control and the right to self-determination. From a family perspective, the human cost is immeasurable. Families describe living in a state of constant waiting. They see the detention as a collective punishment, calling for international monitors to uphold basic human rights. The Third Geneva Convention mandates legal protections for leaders captured during armed conflict, entitling them to prisoner of war status. This prohibits prosecution for mere participation in hostilities. The convention ensures non-discriminatory justice. POWs must be sentenced by the same courts and procedures as the detaining power's own forces. Politicized indictments violate these international standards. We must differentiate between POWs and political detainees. POWs are protected from prosecution for lawful acts of war. Political detainees are held for their roles in a de facto state, often facing charges of terrorism in hostile domestic courts. The right to a fair trial is violated under ICCPR Article 14 due to procedural arbitrariness. The detention lacks impartiality and independence, relying on a presumption of guilt with closed proceedings to conceal a lack of evidence. The arbitrary detention lacks legal basis. Politicized indictments mischaracterize legitimate civil administration as criminal activity. Domestic laws are applied retroactively, violating the principle of legality. The role of the ICJ is critical, based on precedents set in the Surd case. Previous provisional measures ordered Azerbaijan to protect persons from violence and bodily harm, establishing a legal framework for international monitoring. Human Rights Watch documents systemic due process failures, including vague charges of terrorism and restricted access for independent legal counsel. Detainees are isolated from their families. Amnesty International calls the detentions arbitrary and politically motivated, citing violations of fair trial standards. Urgent concerns are raised regarding the health of older detainees in high-security facilities. As host of COP29, Azerbaijan faces intense international scrutiny. The summit is a crucial moment for global leaders to demand progress on human rights as a condition for diplomatic prestige. There are concerns that hosting COP29 is being used for greenwashing to distract from human rights violations. Pressure mounts for a human rights carve-out to ensure climate negotiations do not provide cover for political injustice. Global protest footprints are growing, with mass rallies demanding international intervention. Coordinated social media campaigns aim to bypass traditional media silences and highlight individual stories. Strategic advocacy includes empty chair initiatives symbolizing the absence of Artsakh's elected leadership and lobbying of parliaments to recognize the illegality of the detentions. The search for a comprehensive peace treaty serves as diplomatic leverage for the release of political detainees. International mediators insist that normalization requires the leader's release. Advocacy efforts include securing specific release clauses within the treaty framework. We must ensure that lasting peace includes accountability for the treatment of detainees. Our short-term goals include securing immediate humanitarian access and intensifying legal filings. Long-term, we aim for the unconditional release and safe return of the Artsakh leadership. We must establish permanent international oversight mechanisms to prevent future due process violations, leveraging diplomatic milestones to ensure human rights compliance defines peace.